from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Good morning to you. We'll start there. What do you make of those comments?
Well, our view is that we will sit down anytime, any place with anyone here at the Capitol or back at the White House, including with the president, in order to reopen the government, find a bipartisan path forward to enacting a spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people and improves their quality of life as opposed to hurting everyday Americans. And of course, anything that we do has to decisively address the Republican health care crisis that is real. It's not fake. It's not irrelevant. It's not random. It's a real health care crisis, including the urgent need to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for tens of millions of Americans who are about to experience dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles because of the Republican refusal to act.
Right. I appreciate your position on the health care issue. The question I have is, there's clearly a game of chicken going on here, and I think it was expressed in many ways by Senator Schumer in terms of how strategically there is a view among Democrats that the longer you can hold out, perhaps the better chance you have either to get what you want or to push the Republicans into some kind of other place. And my question to you is how you think about that, given the trade-off, of course, which is all of the government workers which are currently being furloughed and not being paid.
I think that Leader Schumer and Senate Democrats have taken a strong and principled position for all of the right reasons in the face of this Republican health care crisis. Remember, this is something that has been ongoing from the very beginning of this Congress. The largest cut to Medicaid in American history, forcing, we believe, 14 million people off of health care coverage. Hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health clinics are closing right now, all throughout the country, including in rural America, because of what Republicans did in their one big ugly bill. Medicare is facing a possible cut of $536 billion at the end of this year if Congress doesn't act, connected to that toxic piece of legislation that Republicans enacted, which hurts everyday Americans in order to reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks. And by the way, those tax breaks were made permanent. And then now we're facing the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits in an environment where the cost of living is already too high, and Donald Trump has broken his promise to lower costs on day one. And by the way, on top of all of that, medical research has been effectively ended in the United States of America. And in this Republican appropriations bill on the House side, they want to cut funding for the Centers for Disease Control by $1.7 billion and cut funding for the National Institute of Health by $500 million. This is extraordinary stuff. And we are simply not going to go along to get along the Republican effort to continue to gut the health care of the American people. This is a cost of living issue, and it's a life or death issue for millions of Americans.
Senator, but we're talking about a continuing resolution to keep the government open and then going into the normal appropriations process. I mean, there was an election, and the Republicans were put in a position where they were able to pass the big, beautiful bill, or you call it the big, ugly bill, to then say, we don't like any of that, so we're going to shut down the government until you take back all the things that you duly passed through legislation. If Republicans had tried to do that to the Inflation Reduction Act or the any of the acts that Biden and that administration have passed, if they said we're going to shut down the government because we don't like any of those things you did, we're going to not pay our military, we're going to, not allow the government to reopen until you do what we want. After an election where the American people put Democrats in power, you'd be going crazy. You'd be going crazy about using a shutdown of the government with a continuing resolution to get what you want just because you don't like what the Republicans did. It's not how it works. It's bad. It's bad precedent, and it's just clear. And you're talking about the House. You've already passed this. The Senate is who we're talking about, and they have a bill which will reopen the government right now with 5 more Democrats.
What is bad precedent is the Republican refusal to engage in bipartisan negotiations. What is bad precedent is the Republicans embarking on a my way or the highway approach, from the very beginning of this Congress. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Joe, you're exactly right. So if the government shuts down, they've made the decision to shut the government down. And they can reopen it right now if they chose to, with a rule change in the Senate. But I just explained it. The reality is they want to keep the government closed. Cruelty from the very beginning of this administration has been the point. And the responsible thing to do is to sit down and negotiate a bipartisan path forward to address a very real health care crisis that's upon us right now. Open enrollment starts
can you
on
do
November
that? Can you
1st.
do those negotiations while the government is reopened? I think that's the offer that's been on the table. We did hear the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, talking about how, look, he passed a clean CR. There's not really much for him to politic in because there's nothing to take out. Any Republican pork that they pushed into this to take out of it to offer as a way of getting around this. Can you reopen the government and have these conversations if there's a willing party on the other side, which it sounds like there is if you talk to some of the Republicans who see this as an issue in their district as well?
Well, certainly Marjorie Taylor Greene has made clear that it's a very real issue. It's an issue that Republicans have ignored throughout this year, and it's an issue that needs to be addressed right now. Mike Johnson has made the representation, including at that White House meeting that we had last week, after Chuck Schumer and I reached out to demand that we have the conversation. Unfortunately, it took place literally a day before the government shut down because Republicans have refused to engage in bipartisan negotiations or even conversations up until this point. And our view is, what Johnson said is that health care is an irrelevant extraneous issue. No, it's not an extraneous issue. It's a central issue. And we need to deal with it right now. And we're willing to sit down and have that conversation. We want to reopen the government.
But you're not going to fix this. That's a negotiation that is going to take a very long time. Employees, including the military, are not going to get paid on October 15th. Can you have these negotiations?
And that's an issue that we believe should. And that's an issue that we believe should be dealt with respect to our troops in a bipartisan way, in a manner that it has been dealt with in the past in previous shutdowns,
in the past, you've had appropriations
in
bills that had
October
already
of
been
2013.
For the right.
No, I'm talking about in October of 2013, where as a standalone issue, the military pay for our families and men and women in uniform was dealt with. That's what I'm making reference to. So who should get paid besides the military? You think the TSA agents should get paid? Where does the line stop for who gets paid and who doesn't? The law requires everyone to be paid, and unfortunately, Donald Trump has once again suggested that no one is going to get paid, which to me is consistent with the efforts to undermine the rule of law that we've seen from this administration from the very beginning. Listen, our position just remains clear. We just want to have a serious bipartisan discussion about reopening the government and enacting a spending agreement that meets the needs of the American people. And we disagree with the notion that the March partisan continuing resolution, which they put before us once again, is actually clean. No, it's not. We opposed it in March because it represented, in our view, an attack on veterans, an attack on nutritional assistance, an attack on women, infants, and children funding, an attack on housing affordability, and an attack on health care. That's not a clean continuing resolution in our view, and it was not bipartisan. Certainly that wasn't the case in the House.
But Leader Jeffries, I mean, we know that there are, varying opinions on both sides of the aisle, sharply differing opinions on how to do everything. And you've just outlined a lot of things that Democrats, a lot of problems they have with Republicans. Republicans have a laundry list of things that happened during the Biden administration that they feel the same way about. And I guarantee if they had shut down the government and said, we want a bipartisan talk on doing all this, but what Republicans want, Democrats, their hair would have been on fire. Democrats would have said that's not the way to do it. You can't do it through a government shutdown. And now you're employing that same tactic on what I'm sure you feel are very important issues, but it just looks like, politics as usual to a lot of people.
I think this is very personal for the American people who are at risk of literally experiencing thousands of dollars in a potential increase in their health insurance in a manner that will bankrupt many folks or deprive them of access to health care. We're talking about a married couple of two individuals, for instance, that makes $88,000 a year, currently receives tax credits from the Affordable Care Act and pays about $8,000 a year. Now, this is a situation that's already unaffordable, but their premiums may actually triple to $24,000 a year, unable to afford that. That's what we're talking about. And this is a very real thing that's happening right now.
We're not going to fix Obamacare or the AC. There's a lot of issues that are not just the expiration of the subsidies that are causing a lot of these problems. And you're not going to be able to fix it and negotiate it between now and reopening the government. You got to reopen the government first and then get.
We made very clear at the beginning of September that we will find a bipartisan path forward to keep the government open and enact a spending agreement that meets the needs of the American people. What we also said is we will not support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people. But it was already
supported the
This wasn't an 11th hour position. It was a position that we articulated early on, and unfortunately, Republicans chose a my way or the highway approach that they
Democrats
are continuing
voted for
right now in the Senate.
Initially. This is the same funding that was already passed by both houses.
I explained that Democrats in the House strongly opposed this spending bill in March because it hurt the American people.
Right.
And this current bill actually excludes about $500 million in funding in public safety grants that are provided to support local law enforcement. I don't have enough time to go through all of the problems with this particular partisan Republican spending bill, but they are numerous. Right. And they all hurt the American people as opposed to helping the American people.
I'm really afraid to ask you about Mamdani, Leader Jeffries.
I usually ask you, so I thought we'd let Joe do it this time.
Let me. I don't want you to bristle. I've seen what happens when some other people have asked you about that. But you live in New York. I mean, it matters. New York City. Can you at least tell me whether you'd vote? I guess you're not going to tell me that. But are you going to endorse him anytime soon? Or what about Senator Schumer?
Well, listen, Senator Schumer, of course, Leader Schumer speaks for himself. New York City is the greatest city in the world. I love the city. I was born and raised in the city, raised the family in the city of New York, now proud to represent Brooklyn in the United States Congress. When Mayor Adams decided that he would not run for re-election, I issued a statement making it clear that I would have more to say about the mayor's race prior to early voting starting at the end of this month. And I intend to make sure that I keep that promise. But we're in the middle of a government shutdown right now. Donald Trump and Republicans have shut the government down. People are being hurt. We've got to find a path forward to reopen the government and to address the Republican health care crisis. And as it relates to us, right, as Democrats, we are just united in fighting to make life better for working class Americans, everyday Americans, and middle class Americans. And it's real progress that needs to be made for us in New York City and beyond the borders of New York City and throughout the country, and that's what we intend to do.
Well, good to have both sides on, and we hope we can continue to do this. I don't know if we get anywhere.
We love having these conversations. Yep. We hope that we can end it. We hope these conversations will come to an end sooner or later.
We promised viewers a deal today, Leader, and looks like
may go through the weekend.